All right, welcome everybody of the Sales Hustle. Today I am joined by the co-founders of Homerun Presales, Kevin Lewis and Brian Lewis. Guys, welcome.
Hello,
Hey,
good
Miles.
afternoon.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining. It's I'm excited for the second episode. The first one I had, for the folks that have listened, we talked about kind of AE and SE relationships. This one we're really going to jump into, really focus on pre-sales and mostly the tools that help them there. But I'd love to dive in with you guys and understand, your role, how you got here, and how Homerun came to be. So if you guys want to jump in and introduce yourselves, and then kind of tell, what is Homerun and how did it get started?
Well, as the older brother, I think I'll take the lead on this one. Yeah, Miles, thanks for having us. So I've had a career in pre-sales, going back to 2005. So what is that, going on 18 years? Although it started off as a sales/pre-sales kind of role combined. At that time nobody was really using pre-sales as a term, so I didn't know any better. It was just show up, do a good discovery, give a good demo. If there's a hands-on workshop, lead it from there. But I was in the supply chain management space and was an individual contributor there for a number of years. As the team grew, built out the pre-sales team there. At that couple of years ago, we sold that company, and right at that time, Homerun was starting to kick into high gear. So I've been at Homerun since.
Yeah, and for me, my background, I started, I was a developer and engineering manager for 20 years and moved on to the sales side and, was working on the pre-sales and was at a startup and was working, managing many deals and decided, being a developer, I need to make a tool to help myself manage the many deals that I was working on. So, Homerun really for me started as a tool that I just made for myself. I didn't expect, anybody to use it over time. And as we started developing and using it, more people wanted to start, taking part in using Homerun, and it, looked like there was a there. And so started talking to Brian, and we said, hey, there, might be something here. And we looked at the software and decided that's, how we would get Homerun started.
That's awesome. My background, I've only been in sales for about 4 years now. Previous to that, I was actually running security teams and network engineering my whole career, security engineering, things like that. So, I came over to sales engineering, and as it evolved, it became pretty obvious that there's the massive amount of tools that people have created for sales in general. It blows my mind. And then what I realized though, is most of those tools are created for sales reps. There's not a lot for pre-sales. How do you guys see that? Has that evolved more since you guys have, been on this journey, or is it still, a lesser known item that people are looking for, that there's pre-sales software out there?
Yeah, I mean, the majority of companies that we talk to on, that are coming in asking for demos and wanting to take a look at Homerun are telling us this is the first time they're hearing about a tool for pre-sales, so they're super excited. They've been exposed to their CRM and a lot of sales tools and customer success tools and all kinds of other DIY tools, but really nothing, that's been purpose-built for pre-sales. I think a lot of the tool development, like Homerun pre-sales, or a lot of the demo automation tools, which are also a form of pre-sales tool, they've all kind of, really exploded just in the last few years as pre-sales has matured into a formal go-to-market function that has formal headcount and titling and career paths, and now, of course, purpose-built tools.
Yeah, that makes sense. Where do you guys see, when you look at CRM tools, because I think that's the biggest jumping off point, at least that I see immediately, is, everyone, I struggle to find a company that doesn't use Salesforce, and if they do, there's things like Dynamics and things like that out there. But where do you see those traditional tools fall short? And what's really causing the need for tools like Homerun and others?
Yeah, I think, first and foremost is that, like, the CRMs, they were built for a different go-to-market team. They weren't purposely built for pre-sales. So what we find is, a lot of teams, they're spending time trying to customize the CRM, make changes that to accommodate the pre-sales team. And, that's super expensive and time consuming.
Yeah, when you look at that, right, like with the customizations, because I get the question. I've been in groups, right? There's all sorts of pre-sales leadership groups that I've been a part of, and the question always gets asked, well, if the data technically lives in a tool like Salesforce, why couldn't you just make that work? Do you guys get that question a lot? Like, if the data lives there, why couldn't you just tweak Salesforce to make it work? And what's kind of the rebuttal to that, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, all of the time, of course, because every team, especially right now with the current economic conditions, everybody's trying to get by with what they've got or make it last a little bit longer. Um, but at the end of the day, we look at sales, whether it's Salesforce or just say a CRM more generally, plus all the other myriad tools, because you've got that, but then you've got notes over here and tasks over there, and then another tool over there, and something else to keep track of this. And I got posted notes on the monitor, and as an SE, whether it's an SE, SC, SA, whatever titling, you've got 10 different tools. And so the CRM being one of them is still the sales system of record. It's where a lot of the sales forecasting is done and the reporting is done. So, I mean, everything needs to get back in there. But I also use the analogy of, can you do pre-sales in a CRM? Yes. Can you do it in spreadsheets? Sure. Is it great? No. And it's also like, if you want to have the family over for a big holiday feast at a big dining room table, fully set and decorated, I can give you the tabletop. I can give you 4 legs and some nuts and bolts and a couple of chairs and a tablecloth and some plates scattered around and say, hey, there you go. But that's not the same as a fully decorated table ready to go, purpose built to host the family.
That's actually a really good analogy. We me and a couple of my coworkers were talking about, I think we've built probably 1 million dashboards over the last 4 years, trying to figure out what are the right metrics, and how do you build them, right? There's no set, like, out of the box dashboards. Like, Salesforce doesn't have anything. There's nobody that has these, like, these are the metrics that you should track with pre-sales. So I think we've probably changed them, 400 times. And, I think we were having the discussion, it had to have been 3-4 days ago, where, we were building yet another one. And I remember having the epiphany. I'm like, man, I wonder, I hope that we're not the only people that just sit here and go, is, like, to your analogy, is this really the leg for this table, or is there a different leg for this table? Because I can't figure it out, right? And then the data goes stale because someone doesn't log the task correctly, or something changes. So I love that analogy. I'm going to take note of that one, actually.
Go for it.
So talk to me about metrics. What are the biggest, when you guys are talking to customers and other pre-sales leaders, what are the biggest metrics that you hear that people are trying to capture?
Yeah, I think number one is hitting revenue targets. And I think, Brian can speak to this, but, we're all trying to hit our numbers. And a lot of that has to do with, from a pre-sale standpoint, how long does it take for us to complete an evaluation? How long does it take for us to go from a technical win to a deal win? Once we start understanding these types of metrics, we can start to forecast better. We can start to see, do we have enough deals and enough evaluations in place to hit our numbers? And so I think that's a big metric that people are trying to look at, is just how long does it take, and do we have enough in the pipeline? And I certainly think, we can improve the amount of time spent during the evaluations. And that's one of the other major metrics is, not only where are we spending our time, but where can we improve? How can we make the deal cycle faster?
Yeah. And I mean, Miles, you mentioned this before about, having to build your own dashboards, and is this the right leg or the wrong leg? And it looks like a leg, so maybe it's good. I don't know. I mean, a lot of our customers, they do come to us and say, look, we don't have any metrics. We don't know what a modern pre-sale, what should we be tracking? And they're looking to us for guidance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the value we think we provide, is being a bit prescriptive and saying, look, these are the major KPIs that a modern pre-sales leader should be looking at, both from the leadership level, as a team manager, and also as an individual contributor. And so no matter what metric you throw out, I want to save some time. I want to track the technical win, whatever those metrics are from a pre-sales perspective. As Kevin said, when you dig, if you be a good SE and say why, eventually it comes down to hit our revenue targets. So close more deals, close them faster. Anytime we start talking about efficiency of using our team better, is this the right use of our time? You dig deeper and they're talking about, are these the right deals we should be engaging in? And these are the right kind of contact points with our prospects. Well, the only reason you care about that is so you can close more deals and close them faster and build that relationship faster, spend your time in the right deals, which means you can take on more deals as a team. But also a lot of the pre-sales leadership, what they care about is, you can always throw bodies at the problem, but headcount is so hard to get right now. So when we start talking about efficiency or operational efficiency, a lot of time that means, can we delay headcount for as long as possible and be more efficient and effective technical sellers? And there's a lot of metrics that help get you there. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, those are kind of the two ones: hit the targets and delay headcount.
And I would say also, just kind of the low-hanging fruit is, a lot of our customers come to us and they just want basic visibility. That's something that they don't have. Data is all over the place. They don't know what's going on with certain deals, pipelines, key deals, and so forth. And so just finally surfacing all of that and having visibility, being in a forecast meeting and be able to answer questions in real time without having to do the round trip to the SA or Slack them. Hey, what's going on with this deal? Did we advance the evaluation? All that data is there. So outside of that, not being a metric, I think that's a key data point that, a lot of our customers are looking for. It's just what's going on.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, in my current career, I've grown from being an individual contributor to running the entire SE org at where I'm at now. And it never really hit me until I got to a point where I couldn't memorize all the deals that were happening.
Exactly.
So I got to a certain level where, I was running regions, and in those regions, it was a stretch, but I could literally memorize from the notes everything that was happening with every deal. And then when it went global, that couldn't happen anymore. And that's when the light bulb clicked for me that I have no idea. And it was like kind of the light bulb moment of, I don't know what's happening. I don't know how to track it. Right. To your point, I could ask questions and I could guide people, and I knew they were doing, we have a really great team and I know they're doing the right things. But if you were to ask me, hey, what I heard about XYZ deal, in Ireland, and I'm going, oh gosh, that's, I don't know. So I'm hoping to God that somebody put the right notes in Salesforce, so they log the tasks that I'm hoping they logged, or whatever it may be, to pull that out. So you're absolutely right. That's the hardest part. Once you get to a level where you can't, your brain just can't consume it anymore, you have to just track it. We found that as well with, the technical win. It seems like over the last, 3 years or so, that's become more of a thing, I guess. People are really looking at not just, do customers like us, and, have they told us that, they want to buy from us, but it's really, have we gotten the buy-in from these different layers to tell us that technically we have won, and tracking that is not in a CRM ever anywhere. So how has that evolved for you guys? I mean, I think every company probably does it differently, whether it's, they call it a POC, a POV, some sort of technical win. But what's the biggest metric? Is it literally just, hey, we're tracking to completion of some sort of technical win, or how does that work in a product like Homerun?
Yeah, I mean, you're right that company to company, the definition of technical win, or even whether the concept exists within that organization, does vary quite a bit. I think historically, for those who have said, we don't want technical win, there's been sort of a negative connotation because it's been looked at as the performance of the pre-sales team. If you got the technical loss, that means the pre-sales team screwed up. We disagree with that. I mean, if you want to define it that way, it's your organization, go for it. But we look at it more as, it's the technical win. Did we satisfy all of the technical boxes, right? Well, in order to know that, you have to know what those boxes are. And that means you have to have very clearly defined whether they're test cases, use cases, definitions of success, buy-in from your prospect around, well, what are we agreeing to? How are we going to know that we are the right fit for you? And so the best pre-sales teams are going through and creating that kind of guide. So whether it's an evaluation plan, a POC, a POV, a workshop doc, but something that is actually written down, digitally. In Homerun, that manifests itself with our evaluation plan module, where you can build templates for these, for your pre-sales motion, and standardize and codify your best practices. What are the typical test cases that we would, buyers don't know how to buy your product, right? They know what they want, but they don't know how to evaluate your tool. So coming to the table with a plan of action saying, look, you don't know how to buy, but we do. These are the things we recommend you look at. We've peppered in the things you say you want to know and learn about. So we've added that in as well. If you're in a competitive deal, what are the additional ones you can put in that showcase yourself and make yourself look good, and they're going to stumble a little bit. That's part of the game. But having that plan, getting buy-in, being able to track through it, alert on the warning signs, hey, we're stuck on this, or it's a failing test case. Ultimately, get through all of that. We always say green complete, because literally that's what it looks like in Homerun. There were no blockers on the product side. So not only did you check the test cases or use cases, but also there were no feature gaps or product, feature requests or product gaps that were blocking the deal as well. So you literally check all the boxes on the technical fit. Pricing, negotiation, terms, all that stuff is outside of what we can control, but that's kind of usually the definition of the technical win that we're seeing emerge more and more.
And I think what's important along with the technical win is having that structured evaluation plan and process. As Brian said, customers come to you and they don't know how to buy your product. They may not know exactly what to test. Not every customer is going to come with a detailed RFP that says, here's our requirements, here's what I need to test, here's how I need to test it, show me how this maps to your product. So if you can come in there with a plan in place that says, here's the things that I think are important, here's how you can do that within our product, it shows you as like a technical expert. It helps the customer understand how to test. And if you're in the door first, your evaluation plan essentially becomes the RFP, the bar that everybody now compares the products against. And if you've written your evaluation plan and in the right way, that can really give you an advantage when other products now can't do certain things that they've accepted as this is important for what we're trying to buy.
Yeah, I love the idea of having that all in one place. We called it RFP template. We've called it other things over the years, but we've built this spreadsheet essentially that has a scoring mechanism built in and everything. And to your point, if you can do a good job of making sure that you're the first one in the door, or it always excites me when a customer says they're going to release an RFP and you ask them like, oh, is it written yet? And they're like, no, not yet. And like, oh, we have some examples and some samples of things we'll send to you. And you end up getting the RFP back and it's yours, like it's your template. That's always the most exciting thing. But yeah, being able to track it in one place, I think is a pretty crucial thing. Because I know we've looked at ways of do we put it in a portal, do we put it in SharePoint and share it out, or things like that. But that's just another place to store something. So it's a good idea. Brian, you mentioned product gaps. I think that's another place where I've talked to different pre-sales leaders, and it obviously depends on the product you're selling, obviously, but when you're trying to get to product or any sort of development teams, either roadmap items, hey, these are things I'm hearing in the market, whether it's from road shows or customers or whatever, or to I think the point you were making was a true product gap. We can't move forward without this. It's traditionally been spreadsheets or emails, or if you're lucky, maybe you have Jira, and you have a license for pre-sales. That's always hard, right? So talk to me about that. What does that look like? What do you see customers using the product for, and how has that made people a little bit more efficient?
Yeah, I mean, so I always say pre-sales hears it first and hears it best usually, right? I mean, other people listen for this in their conversations, but the pre-sales team are technical experts. That's why they're in that particular role. So if you ask me for a particular feature, as a good SE, first of all, I know to ask what's the the reason behind it and the value that would provide to see if it's really a feature request or not, right? All that good stuff. But at the end of the day, if it isn't something that we have, we want to make sure we capture it. Now that's right alongside any other details and information that's relevant to help me move this deal forward. A feature request or a product app is just one of those many pieces of data. So, I mean, I'll kind of, from a feature request product app perspective, we want to once again have a place for pre-sales team to be able to capture that easily and not have to go to 10 different tools. So at least in Homerun, and since you mentioned Jira, I hear it. I'm in a workspace for this deal already in Homerun. I'm capturing other information as I'm hearing it. I log that feature request. I can piggyback off other ones that already exist in Homerun. If I don't find it there, I can search Jira from Homerun and say, hey, maybe the product team already has something in the roadmap that I can kind of piggyback off of, because that's what I'm hearing. And what you're really doing is attaching deals and dollars to those features, to those product gaps. And if there is something that's actually a blocker, there's ways to designate that as well, and it throws up some warning signs in Homerun. And if you don't find it in Homerun and you didn't find it in Jira, there's ways to create new Jira issues directly from our tool. So kind of being that day-to-day one-stop shop becomes important. But we talked about data just collection earlier and kind of where does it go and why is it a challenge? And kind of leading into those metrics that we talked about, you're going to have garbage in, garbage out on the pre-sales metrics that you need to report up the org chart if your team is not capturing information in a diligent, consistent way. And that's one of the reasons why a modern pre-sales solution like Homerun is really great, because it makes it easy. It is a tool that gets easily adopted as that day-to-day. So whether it's a feature request now, or a key attribute, or a follow-up action item, or a checking off a test case in our eval plan, everything's there for everybody to see, and it's all centralized, and now you can do a lot with it.
Perfect. What are the main things, Kevin? I'll lob this one to you first. What are the main successes, I guess, that you're hearing from your customers that are adopting a platform like Homerun? If you were to look back a year, and talk to a customer that's been on the platform, what are they saying that are big changes of adopting a tool like this?
Yeah, I think there's kind of three main things that I see. Number one is something we've been talking about, which is centralizing the data. You finally have a place now where you can centralize your data. You can get everything that your SEs are doing and the information about your deals, which allows you to also help start to structure your process. That's another thing that we've talked about is, having that structured process in place that's repeatable, that has the best use cases, has the best ways to approach selling. And what that leads to is consistency. And so I think that's important, because when you have that consistency, the right pre-sales motion, it can be defined, it can be replicated, and you can train on it. So I think those are kind of the top three things from my perspective that we see. I'm sure, Brian can kind of dig into some of the details.
Yeah, I mean, those are the kinds of things that ultimately lead back to when we talked about metrics of higher technical win rates, faster technical wins, right? So kind of shortening down that sales cycle. And we care about that because we're trying to hit targets and close more deals and close them faster. So the successes kind of be, for a lot of our customers, they're coming in and saying, I don't have any visibility. I don't have any metrics. My team's stuff is all over the place. We basically have, we can't tell anybody what's going on, let alone ourselves. And they look at Homerun as a plumbing application, not a nice to have, but like, this is for the first time actually giving us the stuff we need. If I'm an individual contributor, to manage my deals and make sure nothing slips through the cracks. And if I'm on the management side, that I've got the visibility both for my team as a people manager, how utilized is Kevin? Is he overloaded or headed to burnout, or has he got plenty of bandwidth? But then also from a deal perspective, I got to report up and talk to my leadership about where deals are at in the pipeline. And if something's in commit, but Kevin's saying, oh, that's a problem, I need to make sure I have the information to voice that and say, look, we're going to blow the forecast unless we move some things in or out or have a discussion around it. So sometimes the success is just having that plumbing for the first time. Once you have that, then you start going to that next level of, what is that data telling us? How are we trending? What are our metrics? Which ultimately is, how do we get better at what we're doing? What can we change up in our motion? Or how do we reallocate our time and differently across the stages to make sure we're doing the right stuff at the right time, which still leads back to the same performance metrics, right? Hit the targets, delay headcount.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about from like the CRO level, right? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you guys talk to a lot of pre-sales leaders every day, but what are you hearing from CROs? Like what kind of visibility are they getting from a tool like this?
Yeah, I'll start on this one, then Kevin can kind of, finish off. It is still about visibility, right? Because normally once the pre-sales team gets involved, it is like a black hole, because as we talked about, there's no collection, or it's very sporadic about where stuff's getting collected. So a CRO says, what's going on with our new business? The AE will have their opinion, but nobody knows on the pre-sales side. Well, what about existing business? If we were a pre-sales team also supporting, existing business, same thing, we don't know. What's the status of the POC or POV? We don't know. So you've got a lot of just the CRO also saying, look, I've got a major blind spot, and I'm only relying on the sales team and what they're saying as a contribution to the sales forecast. The modern CRO is recognizing that's a problem. You need to have that direct contribution, pre-sales having a seat at that sales forecast table in order to really understand the forecast. But also we talk a lot about, and our customers get a lot of great value out of this around that transition from pre-sales to post-sales. So if it is a net new logo, the pre-sales team has built up an amazing relationship, right? We're that trusted advisor. We know everything about what they've done. We've had an evaluation plan. We know the test cases, everything. And usually what happens at a company is you sign on the dotted line, and then it swaps over to another team with the best of intentions, show up and says, Miles, nice to meet you. So how can we help?
Right.
You're like, well, what the heck? We just spent 6 months learning and telling you everything. Now I got to start all over. That's not the customer experience anybody wants. And so the modern pre-sales or CRO is looking at how you help with that transition, right? And make that smoother so that you have better customer experiences. They get set up for success faster. And ultimately, that's about protecting revenue. You've now got them. You don't want churn risk coming first renewal, or if it's consumption-based, they're not using it. So the CRO cares about protecting the revenue that you've now earned. So yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing. I don't know, Kevin, if you got any other thoughts there.
I would just say, just from a technical standpoint, when you start to bubble this information up, things like feature requests, for example, when there's key deals or strategic deals in play, not everybody knows how important certain deals are to the organization. the CRO can put pressure to get the right features released, to get the right things done. So when they have that information, then they can apply the pressure where it needs to go. So I think that's also another thing that you don't always get when you don't have the details.
Yeah.
You may just know, are we feeling good or bad about this evaluation, but not, hey, let's go talk to product and see what's going on here.
Yeah, I like the idea too. If a feature request is not necessarily a blocker, but kind of a nice to have, and if that collaboration between tools is there, once that feature becomes available, maybe the customer did sign, and now you can go back to them and say, hey, we've added this, and it's either an add-on, like net revenue, or it's just a feature that's being turned on to make them happy. But even just tracking that and showing that you listened and you came back to them, is a huge win, right? So if it's thankless and it just, hey, there's these deals that wanted this feature and it's there, I think that's a huge win.
Yeah. Well, and also, like you said, I mean, makes them happy, but like that goodwill goes a long way, right? Mm-hmm. We close the deal, and 6 months later, even if it's in the post sales process and a different team, and I reach out and say, hey, Miles, that feature that you asked about, I remember that it's available now. You'll hear from our customer success team. That relationship still keeps everything going, like you said, that you've heard us, and that builds up that goodwill that's going to get to that renewal and that positive impact. And also, since we're talking about the CRO also, and this kind of goes into the marketing side, they want happy, vocal customers, right? Because they're going to be out there leaving reviews. They're going to be out there being customer references and referrals, and they're going to leave that company and go to the next company and want to take you with them. And so everything you can do to give them a great pre-sales experience, keep them happy in the post-sales experience. And again, it all starts with pre-sales. Pre-sales is the critical link between customer acquisition cost and lifetime value. You never get to that point unless the pre-sales team does their job and does it well.
That's a good point. So, last question for you guys, and share what you like here. What's the future of this, not just Homerun, but pre-sales in your mind? Like, as things are adopting, is there big things you guys are hearing that's kind of a trend that you think is gonna kind of continue, or do you see any shifts in what pre-sales might look like?
I think any
software specifically, right? Like, is there any big things people are asking for that you think is kind of the next big thing? We got recorded demos, we have this type of item. Like, what do you kind of see as like the evolution?
Yeah, I think something that's on everybody's mind, which is, AI. We can look at a lot of things that we're now collecting around evaluation plans and features and the overall sentiment and what's happening in meetings and so forth, and using AI to understand how are things going, where can we improve, what are suggestions of things we should be doing. So I think that's a key thing that's coming into pre-sales from a technological standpoint. And then I would also say that from a competitive standpoint, pre-sales teams are looked to provide a lot of the competitive information, and so I think that's another key driver around pre-sales going forward as well.
Yeah, and happy to sign a NDA with your entire world audience here, Miles, and we can tell you everything that we see coming and we have planned. But I mean, the general themes around, especially if you're using a solution like Homerun, you've got the data now, right? You've got the adoption of the end user base because it's a well-designed tool that's easy to use and just the right amount of structure and tooling, but not so much that it gets in the way, all that good stuff. You've got the data now. I write a lot about this on LinkedIn, so this is no secret, but you've got the data. It's time to share it with the other teams, sales, marketing, product, customer success, the C-suite. You've got it. Now you can leverage it. So whether that's through AI, other automations, continuing to connect systems and teams, there's a lot of really good stuff there. And also as pre-sales continues to evolve, those next generations of, what are going to be those new benchmark KPIs that exist next year that didn't exist 3 years ago because nobody really thought about pre-sales that way. And we're seeing that evolution, in the KPIs and metrics that the pre-sales team is looking at, because fortunately, the org chart and the C-suite are starting to realize that impact and value that pre-sales teams have, which is why it's become that formalized, a mature go-to-market function. But they're asking for new stuff. They want more insight, more information, and that's going to lead to pre-sales team saying, all right, I need this. How am I going to get it? And how am I going to get it in a very efficient, highly automated way?
Yeah, I love it. That's definitely what has a lot of people buzzing in. I think a lot of the pre-sales forums and things like that is they're being asked for data that they weren't asked for even a year ago, and trying to figure out how they give it. So I definitely agree with that. Well, Thanks, gentlemen. It's always informative to see just kind of what's going on, what software is going on. I think it's a big topic, so I appreciate you guys taking the time to share, help us understand kind of where we see pre-sales going and the technology that's really starting to drive out there. So thank you so much for spending the time with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Miles. Great discussion. Loved it.
Thanks, guys.